I got a bit of communism in me too, I guess. I'm a bit of a commie. Yeah, a bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not such a bad philosophy of life actually. But hey, I want to tell the audience about your a little bit about you. Introduce you to the group here. Pam is a single mom. She's raised 4 kids and has 5 grandsons. She's recently become an activist. Her background, though, professionally is media and advertising for 30 years. She owns a classified newspaper called The Thrifty Nickel. Quite popular, I hear.
Oh, yeah, the Thrifty Nickel's been on the streets of the United States of America for 33 years, I think. It's all across the country.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good way to make a living. And she's also been an investigative reporter and part owner of weaponizednews.com. Go check it out, folks. Weaponizednews.com, just as it sounds. And also a staff reporter for the Liberty Beacon, my favorite website on the planet.
Yay! Yeah, my new gig.
Your new gig?
Yeah. Like I don't have enough to do. I love you, Ralph. Thank you.
You landed in the right place.
Yes, I'm telling you, I feel honored to be part of a group of activists who don't just want to talk about things, but actually want to take some action. We need action behind our words, or we're never going to accomplish anything. So I'm proud to be part of that.
Yeah. Oh no, you have an awesome plan. I'm all on board. I'm completely supportive, and I've introduced some really good people to the Liberty Beacon movement, and it's going to make a big difference next year. I'm telling you, it's a super organization. So the big question I usually ask my guests is, what happened in your life that turned you into a rebel, or got you looking for other explanations for events going on in the world?
You know, I thought about that after you asked me that earlier. And I guess the best way that I could answer that is, you know, I'm adopted, and I didn't have parents and brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, you know, what normal families have to help them raise their children. I had to do this all on my own. And, you know, I always had the option of being the welfare mom, but I always chose work. So, you know, I'm out in the working world trying to make my way, make a decent living in the media industry, which is quite cutthroat. And I never really understood how come I never fit in just in that particular world or any of the other genres that I did as I raised my children until it all made sense to me, Brian. It was about 6 or 7 years ago. I couldn't stand living in Fresno in the city, and so I moved my children and I up into the mountains above the city. And every day I had to drive almost an hour to get to work. It was a beautiful hour. I got to relax coming to work. I got to relax going home, and I got to live in the beauty of nature. And I've never been happier in my life. So in my perfect world that I finally accomplished after, you know, I mean, it's hard to raise children on your own without extended family. And so I have this beautiful room like all other people do every night.
We lost you, Pam. We lost you for about 5 seconds.
So I'm sitting in my living room like, you know, a happy little American thinking I got it all made. I own a company. I own this beautiful house in the mountains. I got beautiful kids, beautiful cars. I got the boat. I got it all. And my son, who is 22 maybe at the time, lived in an apartment above my 6-car garage. And he comes screaming into my house one night. And I don't know, I'm probably watching American Idol. I used to be a major American Idol fan. And he comes in screaming at me at the top of his lungs. What the heck are you doing sitting there? How come you haven't told me this? What is going on? Why aren't you doing it? The government's killing us. We're being poisoned. We're being robbed. He was hysterical. And I just looked at him like he had lost his mind. And
How old is your son? How old was your son when this happened?
He's about 22, 23.
Okay.
Okay, he's young. But he's a smart young man. Got a wise soul. And but I'm telling you, Brian, he was flipping out. And he just started yelling and cussing and blaming me about things I had never heard of. About the Federal Reserve, about genetically modified food, about chemtrails, you name all of the things that we talk about now as an activist community. And my son was yelling at me at the top of his lungs. And I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. And I didn't know if he'd gone crazy and I needed to call like a paramedic to come take him for a medical evaluation, or I didn't know what to do. So after I got him calmed down and said, look, I'm really sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you come back and talk to me tomorrow? Into this tonight, because I really don't know what you're talking about. And quite honestly, you're scaring me. And so he agreed after a couple hours of ranting at me. And so the first thing I did was went and got, and I just started Googling the things that he said. And just one thing after another started to pop up. And I literally was up day and night. And I'm not kidding you, for at least 6 months. If I wasn't working to earn some shekels, I was studying. And every day he would come over to see what I had found out. And for a long time, he blamed it all on, it was all my fault because it was my generation. I'm 57. It's my generation. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't involved. This is all your fault, Mom. And so that is what woke me up, Brian, and it was earth-shattering.
And where did your son hear about it?
You know, he is just a researcher, reader. He's he's a soul like his mother. We love knowledge. We love to read, look, see, investigate, touch, feel, taste. I kind of like to know for myself. I'm not one just to believe, but obviously that's the life I lived for many years. So he's just on the internet and just did a lot of reading. He read stuff that boy still, you should interview him. He's so smart, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, but yeah, it was my son, and it was terrifying. 6 months of my life. Now I'm just, now.
You cut out a there. You cut out. It's okay. I think I understand where you're going with it. But so is your son now an activist as well?
He has been a closet activist. And by that I mean he likes to rant and rave. He likes to tell me everything that he has learned. He likes to tell me the things I still don't know. There seems to be a progression in this awakening to the truth, and no two people are the same. My knowledge level and how fast I acquire knowledge is much different than his. His brain is younger. He's been exposed to far less chemicals than me, because when we figured this out, he immediately changed his diet. He doesn't eat meat. He only eats organic. He watches for GMOs, so he's not consuming that stuff. My brain is a little slower. I've got a lot more toxins in me because of my age. So, but he's what I call a closet activist, and that he hasn't branched out and started talking. Now, when I found out what was going on because of what he told me, I immediately my Facebook page actually used to be my company's Facebook page. And I started to talk about it a little bit on my Facebook until it almost became an obsession to tell everybody, because there was 5,000 people. Did you know? Because I didn't, And I spend a lot of time. If I wasn't working or sleeping or cleaning my house, I was somehow on the internet getting the message out about all the things that I was learning, and I was really reaching out to the older people so that they could tell their kids, so they could stop consuming the chemicals as much as possible. And I was ridiculed a lot. It was an interesting journey because my spreading the message and researching, though he wanted me to know and change it. So he said I wasted a lot of time, and he's watched me develop into a totally different person with a totally different career. I consider myself a full-time activist. I just do the weekly publication to earn the shekels, to shuffle money. this paper money around. People seem to want it, and I seem to get it and give it to people. But
so you're kind of like me. You've retired into activism.
I have, and he has watched me go from saying stuff to taking action. You know, there was a guy here locally named Sam who was on Access TV as We Are Change Fresno, and he watched me throwing steam up everywhere, and he kept coming to me to partner up with him, and I finally partnered up with him about 4 years ago. How Weaponized News came to be. He's the voice on the radio every Saturday, and I'm the person behind the scenes, along with Stuart. He's the voice on the radio. So my son watched me start to get involved. And if you read my paper every week, there were, I can put ads in there. So there's ads in there on geoengineering, ads in there on GMOs. You'd see me standing on the corner of the busiest street here in Fresno holding a geoengineering or a GMO sign, handing out flyers.
This is your classified?
Yeah, I run ads paper? In it. Yeah. You know that big event they just had up in Sacramento with Michael Murphy and everybody went up there?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I ran an ad in my paper, quarter-page color ad in my paper to let everybody know that was going on. So, being in my industry has kind of worked to my advantage as an activist. You know, I can reach 200,000 people every Thursday. Works out pretty good.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so, but...
well, I hope you know how important you are to the movement, because it's going to be the people like you that are going to make the difference. Because we need lots of people who have lived a mainstream life most of their lives to wake up.
Yeah,
you fit into that category. I mean, it's and it's so important. I mean, people can. It proves the point that people are capable of change, of realigning their consciousness and becoming aware of really what's going on.
It really is the truth, Brian. You know, because if you'd asked me 10 years ago this stuff and doing what I'm doing, I'd tell you you're flat out crazy. No way, you know. But now I do my publication. I reach conservatively 150,000 people every week, just with my weekly paper. And Weaponized News is 2 hours on local radio on an AM station and reaching a lot of people, on the weekends. We go out into the community. You'll find me coordinating and attending most of the protests and stuff that go on, the geoengineering protests, the GMO protests. You know, I'm kind of forefront here locally. So if one old grandma with a bad health, because I have lots of health problems from all this stuff, can do what I've done, and I'm a nobody. So, I mean, yeah, everybody, just one foot in front of the other, and every day take a little bit of action. And we'll rock this and be able to flip this around because, there's more of us than there are of them.
Pam, you're not a nobody. I hate to say it, but you're incredibly important because you're a role model for all the other people who used to watch. Like, I still like watching a little bit of TV. It's not my focus anymore, but I don't mind watching American Idol or one of these competition. I love music. I love, seeing people with the balls to get up there in front of the whole country and sing their butts off. So, no, I think there are certain things on TV that make some sense. But the news is completely, like, a waste of time.
Well, if I get my way, I'll put a newspaper on the streets of my community and give these liars a run for their money. That is one of my goals. I'm a big person. If you want something to happen, you got to first identify what it is. Will it make you happy? Then set some goals, get a plan, and then attack it. And that's what I'm currently doing. And I had an opportunity this week to buy 70 Los Angeles Times newspaper racks, the metal ones, the real nice ones. All I did was $700, and the first thing I thought was, man, I could put Weaponized News newspaper in there, but but yeah, it's just action. You got to take action.
So tell us a bit about how long you've been involved with Weaponized News, and you're part owner, you said.
Yeah. Sam Chaney, who you really should meet and interview, is an amazing young man. One of the things, Brian, that I've tried to do, because, I'm in the media industry, is to reach out and find young people who are waking up and alert them of how dire their future is. And I don't want to be held responsible. This holding, 18 generations back responsible crap has to stop. But I'm here and I can help. So I watched him and he watched me, which seems to be the norm in the activist community. You kind of get your eye on someone and you kind of watch them to see, what they're doing, what they're about, where they're going, what they represent, to see if you can trust them, I guess, is what we're all trying to achieve. But he approached me many times. And I was like, will you work with me? Will you work with me? Because I'm a local publisher. He knew we could really get the message out, right? And I was like, wasn't quite ready to put my face, my name, my company attached to this, which is the norm as you're going through this process, right? You don't really want to attach yourself. You don't want to be the nut in the town. And he kept approaching me, and I went to a GMO speech. I can't remember who it was. Someone well known in GMOs came through town. I actually did an interview and got him on air, but Sam was there. And he took questions and answers, and Sam is always in a tie, pressed shirt. Everybody's asking these really simple, little, soft questions, and Sam gets up there and just asks the question that just takes the breath right out of the guy's belly, And that's the way Sam has been. His show's that way. He's not scared to say what's on his mind. He knows that we're in dire times. And he just worked me for several years until one day he was like, "Are you ready?" And I was just like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I'm not kidding you. He quit a $50,000 a year job to come work in my office, to be with me, to learn what I did, and to tap into what I did to help grow what he was doing. So he's on TV every day on the local public access channel. And so we just started working together and going to more events and just raising more awareness. And then he got there was another gentleman here in town, young guy. He's young, in his early 20s. Stuart Webb's his name. He's wonderful, and you should interview him. And he became Sam's partner on air on the TV station, on the TV show.
Is this part of Weaponized News, or is that part of the community cable channel?
Prior to Weaponized News, Sam just went down and uses CMAC and puts a show on the community public access station here. So then Stuart started going, and then one day they go, "Look, we want to be on radio." And so they contacted the local KGED 1680 AM, and they talked to the station manager and said what they wanted to do. We formed a small company called Weaponized News. That was Sam's idea. And check out our logo. It's badass. It's like a camera, microphone, gun combination. It's really cool. And so we formed Weaponized News, got us a web designer, paid him to build us a website, cut a deal with the radio station. I sponsor the 2-hour show because it's very expensive. And we take the best from each of us, and we're building a little mini local media empire and giving CBS and ABC a run for their money. And I actually had ABC want to interview me, and it was really interesting. And I said, "Well, how about I interview you?" And I have some footage of this ABC reporter behind me when I was doing a speech at the Fresno Unified School District. They spent a ton of money on more security cameras, and I have a real boner about all this Minority Report security grid. It's an open air prison they're building, And I have a boner about it. And so when I go talk, I go tell these people what I want and how I want it and when I want it. And I ain't scared to do it. And you can see this reporter sitting behind me. And at the end, I just straight up asked everybody on that school board, are you part of the New World Order? If you're not, raise your hand. And nobody raised their hand. And if you look at that video, you can see her look up at this elderly lady who's part of the school board. And I was like, yeah. And then she wanted to interview me. And I was like, no, because you're part of the New World Order right there. I know you are. I just got it. Now, I really want to do a report on it, but I haven't gotten around to it. So we just pull the best from me and Stuart and Sam. And then, we've built a big following here locally of people who love us and respect us and help us and come on our show, write articles for us. And,
okay, let's just slow down for a bit. I want to know, so you're saying, how is this radio station doing? Is it how does it work in the ratings, or do you know how your ratings are going in the area for your time slot?
No, we're not. They're not really able to give us anything. And as a person in media, I want those numbers, but I don't. They don't have any, is what they tell me. So we're actually thinking about moving to another station on top of staying with them. So we've got some things planned here locally. Fresno, California, Brian, is a test market. If Kraft comes up with a new product, they test it in Fresno, California. If GM comes up with a new tire, they test the sales in Fresno. If the pharmaceutical companies come up with a new drug, they test it in Fresno, California. We're famous for testing products. And I totally forgot where I was going with that.
You're Betaville.
Yeah, we are. And
well, I think you're basically leading up to the fact that the police have brought in or cooperated with the feds and brought in some very sophisticated surveillance equipment into the city. So there's absolutely, you're basically now, I think you were compared it to the movie Minority Report.
Yes, sir. We're an open air prison. Everybody is guilty until proven innocent. And they watch everything we do now with what they've just done. So building our little local media group is really important because nobody here knows what's going on.
Do you have a call-in feature on your show? Can people call in and talk to you about what you're talking about?
No, that's going to cost us a little bit more money. So we're going to make some maneuvers in 2016. We'd like people to call in. But, I'm a media person. I need to know numbers and stuff. But we know we have listeners because, we go places. People know who we are and tell us thank you all the time. But
Beautiful. Well, this is the reason I'm asking you so many questions about this is I'm going to a meeting on the weekend with some geoengineering, a group. It's sort of a network meeting. They're trying to bring the geoengineers or anti-geoengineering movement together in Canada. All across Canada, and I was going to suggest that we look at getting some airtime on the mainstream because it's my view that the alternative media now is becoming mainstream.
Yes,
it's becoming so popular. It's more popular. There's lots of choices, but I'd say right now we have a bigger audience than the mainstream media does.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do.
Yeah. So I think it's time to go to the mainstream stations and say, hey, we can talk. If you don't want to tell me that, like the financial breakdown, I'd just be curious as to how much you're paying for a couple hours a week. You don't have to say it right now if you don't want to, but we could. Because that's something I'd like to explore because
I can talk.
Really, I think it's a great idea to great because I know Alex Jones. He sells time all over the place. George Norrie. I mean, he's made a real name for his show Coast to Coast. But just getting airtime all over the place. So do you have advertisers on your station?
Yeah, we do. Of course, we advertise a thrifty nickel. Very important. And Jim Long owns GI Jim's Military Surplus. He's up in the mountains. He's a wonderful patriot. He has a blog. He's been on our show many times. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's an amazing person. And you should interview him. He's awesome. He runs on our thing.
You should have me on your show.
You know what? I think I'm gonna. Of course, I won't be on there because I told you I don't do this stuff. So, but we have a landscaper who does high-end landscaping here. His ad advertises that he'll do landscaping for precious coins, silver and gold. We're all trying to let everybody know there's other ways to do things, you know. So Top's Military Surplus, he was on our website and had radio commercials running. It's kind of a work in progress at our end right now.
How long have you had the radio show going?
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah, every Saturday for 2 hours. And you know, Brian, if we want to take our country and our planet at this particular point back, excuse me, we can't do it nationally. We have to get into our communities, and we have to take back our communities. We have to take back our mayorship, the city council positions, the board of supervisor positions. The narrative that comes from local media is what local people know. That's what they hear. They think they know it. That's it. That's fact. That's truth. I heard it on the TV box. So our approach is to get in the nitty-gritty of the local arena, even though we play nationally and internationally, you know, with a website. Our message is local. So if we hear Fox locally report on something that's inaccurate, it only tells one side of the story during the week, that Saturday, you're bet to hear the other side of the story come out the boy's mouth without any sugarcoating on it. So we're able to put the other part of the message out, the truth, you know, that they neglect to tell. And I think if everybody in their communities did this, and it's very affordable, but if everybody did this and we could start reprogramming, re-educating, or you know what the local people don't know, then we can take it back locally and just shove all of this bad, negative stuff out of our communities. But it's got to be done from the bottom up, and definitely not from the top down. So I can tell you when we're done, you know, what all the details, and then you can tell the world, because I want everybody to do it.
Well, one of the things I encourage all my guests to do is to become a friend of mine. I believe that we have to network. Yes. We have to create meaningful relationships as human beings again, because we have this tendency to just like meet people, and then and people like you I want to stay in touch with because you're doing such good work. But everybody I've had on my show are doing good things, but I think we do need. We're overlooking the most common sense thing, which is the need to network and to come together as a community, and not just locally but internationally. But I do think you're right. I think we do need us to be represented locally and to confront the person on the street. I think that's what you're doing is really incredible. I really applaud what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if I have my way, there's going to be billboards going up all over this community.
I was just going to ask you about that. You read my mind.
No, you know that I want to. We've got an armory here. I forget the name of it, but we've got they fly their jets in and out. Okay. And they're spraying all over our head. You know, I know that I go speak at the San Joaquin Valley Air Board quite often and tell them what I want. But anyway, I will
get into that a bit more. I didn't know you did that. No, I didn't know that. Let's explore that a bit.
At the military base, there's a billboard right there. And so I think it's important to remind our military, you are our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters, our sons and daughters. You're there to protect us, and we need you to look up and then look around and evaluate, are you involved in something that you shouldn't be involved in? Because it's okay to say no. No, I'm not going to do that. Any human being has a right to say no. I'm not going to go do that. So if I have my way, I have billboards everywhere. So yeah, that's a work in progress.
So you actually get access to the military base. Like I'm up in Canada here. We don't have a military base on every corner like you do in the U.S.
Yeah.
So you actually go into the military base and talk to the soldiers in their community meetings?
No, I haven't done that, but I'm ready to do that. Right across the street from this base here in my community is a AM/PM, and next to it is a billboard. And so to get on and off that base, you have to drive by that billboard. So that billboard, I think, should be a message to tell them, hey, just a little hey, something's going on, hey, hey, I think someone in that base might be, spraying your parents. So.
Or ask some questions. I know you know Ralph Ely quite well.
Yeah.
And I think that just the general topic, we need to make a movie about people's aha moment. Because this is what's going to draw a lot of other people in. Because a lot of people are sort of on the fence, not knowing which direction to go. But if they see people like you, me, Ralph, Roger Laundrie had a great story. I interviewed him a few weeks ago. So everybody comes together and we say, hey, I mean, we started questioning this, or I thought this was kind of weird, or my whole journey started with poverty back in university days. So I've been awake for a long, long time. But it's getting to the point now where it's almost hard not to notice how messed up things are. And I think a lot of people are gonna have to make that move. And I think a movie that sort of got to that, wow, this is what really woke me up. And then if you have 20 different versions of that, and someone is going to connect with that one person that woke up the way that they're supposed to wake up. And I think it would really be a powerful consciousness-raising tool.
That is an awesome idea. I am going to ponder on that. I just did a small video that I released online in the geoengineering world, actually everywhere. I'm very well known for tagging every mainstream media Facebook page that exists because somebody's, we could keep telling everybody who knows what's going on, but I like to reach out and tell people who have no clue. So I tag all the mainstream media's Facebook pages, and I've been banned from a lot, and I've been in lockdown a lot, and that's okay. But I released a little video. It's about 5 minutes long on the internet here a few weeks back. And it tells a story about geoengineering with strategically placed pictures and text. And it's very simple, soft music, kind of tugs at your heartstrings. And it basically tells my story. 50-some years ago when I was a child, I didn't know anybody with autism or cancer or asthma. And it wasn't hard to breathe, and there weren't any lines in the sky. And all our children are sick and dying. And we don't need to look for a cure. We need to look for the reason it's happening. And then I put up a picture. It's multi-pictures of chemtrailed skies. And it says, is it these lines? It doesn't tag it geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol management, none of that stuff. It's just really simple. And it shows a picture of a mom and her children pointing up to the skies, and the skies have all these lines. And it's like, is these lines in the skies doing something? And it's just meant to softly make someone go, what are those lines, So everybody wakes up and learns and pays attention of all types. Some people like Alex Jones, who rants and screams and raves. If you listen to our show, Stuart's kind of soft-spoken. Sam's the loud kind of, pissy one. I'm all over the board. I've listened to Roger Laundrie, he's in your face. But we need all kinds of personalities in the activist community to start talking and making videos and doing radio shows. And I'm guilty of that. I cower. I've not been on our own radio show one time.
I can't believe that. You're such a great guest.
Oh, because I'm nervous. But
you'll get over it. Hey, Pam, I just want to. I just got to announce something. I probably should have done it earlier, but I have a hard time remembering things sometimes. But Jim Lee is joining us in the second hour, folks. Jim Lee is a top geoengineering researcher. He used to have a show on Revolution Radio a few years ago. And he's got one of the best sites on the planet. Believe me, I can't wait for you guys to meet him and hear his theories on what's really creating the chemtrails and stuff. He's really a fascinating guy, and he's really done his homework. So I hope everyone's going to hang in for that, and Pam as well. I hope you can hang in and share some of your views with Jim.
Yeah, I'm excited. I probably will stay with you. I really want to hear what he's saying. It's tough when you hear all this stuff trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So yeah, I think I'm going to stay with you and listen to what he has to say.
Oh, great. Yeah, and feel free to ask questions and whatnot. He's actually joining your show. Okay, this is you. And he's coming in as a sort of like as an addition because he wants to meet you, and he said he's really impressed with what you're doing, and he's seen your posts and whatnot. So,
Brian,
you're making a name for yourself in the world, Pam.
You're bringing him on in case I'm a big loser. It's okay. I'm okay. You know what, Brian? I am making a big name for myself. When Ralph reached out to me, I was like, why are you reaching out to me? I'm just an old grandma type, And he was like, I've been watching you for a long time, which I've heard now several times. And it's like, stalker. No, I'm just kidding. But I am. And I like my anonymity. I've been able to have it for a very long time. And I will tell you, Jones is my writer's name. So I am still protecting that a little bit. I think I'm going to change it legally, though. You want to know why?
Sure.
I'll tell you why. Because I just like things to be interesting, and since our government thinks that they like to track us, they can track me. I just change my name every couple of years because I was adopted, so I was born. Let me see if I can get this straight. I was born Baxter's Walters Warner, but my real last name when I was born was Parker because I was adopted. Then I married Hood, Menard, and Tharp. So if I change it to Jones, I think I'll have like 10 last names and only have been married twice. I think that might be fun.
That's great, the story. Hey, I want to ask you about this cool little flower you got going, or this advertiser, the Thrifty Nickel. Have you gotten any feedback on your ads about geoengineering and events and whatnot going in that paper? Has anybody sent you any feedback about that?
The people locally who follow me always tell me thank you. And other than that, no, I haven't gotten really any pros or cons. And I'm not real sure why that is, to be honest with you. I think the average reader of my publication, they pick it up. There's nothing in there to read but products and services for sale. And they're picking it up to buy something. So subliminally, I'm giving them a very important message that they need to know about. So a lot of them are probably confused, and that's probably why I don't hear anything. But I have gotten no negative, and that surprises me, that I'm not getting attacked by, someone locally to make me knock it off. 6 years ago, whenever overpasses to impeach Obama started, I was part of the local group. There was about 8-10 of us that stood on the overpass every Saturday. And I printed on the back page of my paper, Brian, Obama's face. It was just his face. And then in size 8 font, and this is a 8.5 by 11. This is a big page. All of the crimes he's committed. And I ran that on the back page, the back cover of my paper.
Wow.
For like 8 weeks, and I didn't get no blowback from it at all. I got all good comments and no bad comments. So that's kind of gutsy, I think. I was being
this is kind of an interesting contrast because so many consider like a paper that promotes services, products, like sort of like a cheap commercial kind of vehicle, but you're combining it with something that is progressive and radical. And yeah, this is really unique, and that's why I'm asking, because I'm just curious as to whether or not you're getting any negative feedback from the sort of the quote and the materialistic type people who like these flowers. But I think that again, what's happening is that the what I'm saying about the mainstream and the alternative are starting to meet, starting to converge. And the fact that you're doing this and it's not getting a lot of negative feedback is a good thing. You haven't lost any advertisers or anything like that?
No. I haven't lost any. None.
Beautiful.
You know what I do too is I strategically hide, because half the paper is classified ads. People love to read classified ads and use refrigerators, buy cars, all that kind of good stuff's in there. So strategically within those classified headings, you will find little 10 or 15 word classifieds. And I'll put George Washington quotes and look up at the sky, geoengineering stuff, GMO stuff, in the Fed stuff, go to this link, learn about, I hide in that paper lots of little subliminal messages, and I haven't gotten no blowback. And that's amazing.
Well, like a whole back cover against Obama,
it was just his face. It was fabulous. Yeah, I liked it. I was mad, we got a crazy man in our White House, so.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think he fits in well on the world scene. There's a lot of crazy leaders out there right now. Yeah, we don't really know how to function anymore as a human community, and that's a big part of my message. Small is beautiful. Getting back to the land, getting back to nature. I think it's going to offer us a lot of good guidance. Well,
I think as activists that we have to not just speak it and preach it. We have to be it. And when my son came into my living room screaming, and mind you, I had a beautiful home on 5 acres on the side of a mountain. I was in heaven. And with a built-in swimming pool that was built into the mountain. I mean, it was beautiful. When he came in screaming at me, it not only rocked my world, but it just dug into my soul, and I just realized I cannot participate in this system anymore. So I literally started to shed all of my personal possessions so that I could really figure out who I am. Who's Pam? And what am I supposed to be doing? And what makes me happy? It's not American Idol, and it's not all the stuff I have. So I got rid of all my vehicles. I got rid of my property. I got rid of all my furniture. I'm literally down to the nitty-gritty things of life, the things that I really have to have. I could put everything that I need to live in a motorhome tomorrow and go off and live comfortably. And don't be surprised if I do that. I really want to go do that and report from the road. But I did. I shed all those things so that I could really live my life and know people and hear people, hear what they're saying, not just engage with them. And I just appreciate and love everything at a whole deeper level. I didn't even know it existed. And that came from shedding it all and walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to live a real life, a real existence, becoming an activist actually opens a lot of doors because, first of all, you meet people that care. And I think we are basically caring people. We come into this world, we're loving little bundles of joy, and then we get into this horrible school system, and it kind of turns us into slaves. And we're not really taught how to think or anything constructive all the way through school. So if you want to become reborn, I think activism is the way to go.
They break your soul when you start school. They take all the happy out of your soul. They break your soul. Sit down, shut up. They strip you of everything that you are. And then you go straight out of being a child into a confused teenager, through high school, into college, and they start teaching you get a loan, buy a house, get married, buy a car, get a bigger house, get a bigger car, redecorate your bathroom every month. That's the norm. I mean, it's a crazy cycle, and you just think that's all it is. You think it's perfectly normal, and it's not. It's not normal at all. It's so opposite of normal. It's crazy. So my energy is just going to trying to tell people and to lift up the younger people around me. If I could leave this planet, Brian, and I've left some solid media in place, I will have left something substantial for my existence here, so that hopefully we can take over, and we are. I see it. We are the real media now. These other dinosaurs are done. I know. I played in their arena. I am them. I'm just not them no more. If I can leave solid media groups, and we can leave solid, if we all can do that, this will never happen again if we can take back our planet. So that's very important, and that's why Sam and Stuart are with me.
You might be a star on the Liberty Beacon soon. They're starting a huge media network sometime this year. Yeah,
that's what the word is. That's what the word is. And you know what? When it comes to action, that's where I want to be. They spray us so bad here in the Valley, Brian. I can't take it, and I'll rally up as many people as I can get to go, and it's never very many. And I go and do it by myself, and I'll march into that air board because they will laugh at me on the phone. And they don't laugh at me anymore. They used to laugh at me. I shut them right down. I let them know, hey, I'm the boss, and you're going to listen to me. So you get off your cell phone or whatever they're doing that's inconsiderate. But and so I'm just trying to set an example so that, like my closet activist son, will watch and go, okay, I could do that. If she could do that, I can do that. So I try and say, hey, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's scary, but it's really not that bad. So.
Well, maybe you should explain to the listener what the air board is, because we don't have an air board up in Canada.
Oh, okay. The San Joaquin Valley Air Quality Control Board is in charge of keeping our air clean. And so they monitor the car pollution and the pollution that the cow poop creates. They monitor our fireplaces. We can't have fireplaces here anymore. They monitor everything that has to do with the air. And we have terrible air here. And so that's their job. And I think they have a $2.5 million budget or some ridiculous amount of money. And they accomplish nothing. They just sit up on a big fancy desk and they accomplish nothing. So I call them on days, we'll have 20, 30 planes hit us at one time. Bam, 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 bam. And I'm highly affected by this stuff. It makes my brain foggy, my joints ache. I feel like my bones are just going to crumble. They hurt so bad. So I'm highly affected when they spray this stuff. And because they won't listen to me on the phone, I go down there. And I tell them what is going on in the air. And they're like, yeah, we're familiar with it, but it's really not going on. And I demand that they take their equipment and go up there and test me and tell us what it is. So the Central Valley of California, where I am, Fresno, is the main office for California. So I'm fortunate that I'm here. So every time I go and I talk to them, I'm not just talking to just them. It's televised into a Southern California office and a Northern California office, so I get to talk to those board members as well. And it's live online, and more people are tuning into that. And if I go, a lot of people will tune in and listen and go, oh, she's on. So, again, one foot in front of the other, and just there's no such thing as fear to go talk. And then one mind at a time goes, what's she talking about? What's she talking about? Well, the last time I went, they have a citizens-appointed board. So the San Joaquin Air Board appoints a group of citizens, and they work on certain things. And I went, nobody went with me that night. Got off work, I jammed down there. I was tired. I wasn't feeling good. But they've been spraying really heavy, and I thought, I'm just going to go home. And I thought, no, I'm going to go talk. So I talked to them about what was going on, my 3 little minutes, and it was the dangest thing. So I got all done, and when I was done, I left. I was there by myself. So I would leave. I walk out of the thingy, and I'm headed down the hall to the door to go out, and there was one woman on that citizens board who was up on that pedestal desk. She actually got up, left the board room, chased me down the hall, had tears in her eyes, and said, something's going on, and how can I help you? And I said, you cannot help me, but I can probably help you. You have all the power, you have all the tools, and you have all the money sitting on that board. And she said, I have a young daughter and I'm worried. And so I gave her some links to go look at and told her to do some research. And I told her I'd be back in touch with her after she had some time to digest what she was going to find. And
beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, that's impressive. You actually convinced someone on the board that what you were saying had some validity. And that's that's a beautiful, that's a powerful experience.
It was.
For you and for her.
You know, she not only she'd get down off of that pedestal desk, in such power, you know, but she left the members of that board and chased me out of that room. I was floored. When we got done talking, she gave me her cell number. And
how long ago did this happen, Pam?
This was just a few months back. Nobody was with me, so there's no video on it, darn it. But it ended with a hug of two moms hugged. And we both were crying. And so I touched her. She knows something's going on, and I'm going to have to follow up with her here pretty soon. I figured, you know, she probably needs 3 or 4 months to digest what she's going to find.
Right. Okay, Pam, we're coming up to a break here, as you can hear. So we'll be back soon with more of I Am Nature, Pam Jones, and our other guest coming on, Jim Lee, after the break, folks. Let's all mute. Welcome back to I'm Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and we have a second guest coming with us this hour. His name is Jim Lee, but first, before I get to Jim and back to Pam, I have a few things I have to discuss. The most important one is the fact that Revolution Radio is a public-supported platform. We need your support. And as I say every week, $5 a month, folks, is not going to break anybody. I don't care how destitute you are. $5 is a couple of coffees. Folks, you can make that commitment, and for $5, you can get access to 90 different shows on our archive. You can download them and listen to them at your leisure. So I think that's going to be my plug for the station for now. And secondly, I Am Nature Extended is coming on at midnight Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, 11 Central, whatever time zone you're in, wherever you are on the planet. The station goes all over the planet. Please feel free to call in, send me a Skype, bporter5611. Now, last week I had 11 people call me at 2 in the morning. So, folks, get the time right. It's at midnight Eastern, not 2 a.m. 2 a.m., we're done. Okay. So let's get to our new guest, Jim Lee, and back to Pam Jones as well. Jim, how you doing?
Better never want to fight about it.
Jim's quite a character. Jim has the most incredible site on the planet, climateviewer.org. Is that the site name?
Well, that's one of them. Climateviewer.org is my 3D map of everything from the NWO to space with the ionospheric heaters, Star Wars, missile defense radars, nuclear reactors, and all that stuff. But climateviewer.com is Climate Viewer News. Just a disclaimer, we're not an organization. It's just me. Made both websites. I really don't sleep.
Jim, I mean, you got to go see these sites now. Are they up right now? You said you had a server crash today.
Yeah, our RAID array on our server has magically disappeared, and I just finally, after 3 hours, got a response from the server host, and they're saying that either the RAID car or the RAID array has disappeared, and they're trying to figure it out. But coincidence, I've been on probably 10, maybe 12 radio shows, and 8 of them, my server has disappeared before the show. So this is standard procedure. I'm not going to sweat it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of interference. My buddy James McKinney was on Liberty Beacon just before us, and he lasted 5 minutes, and then he was gone. So yeah, no, it's there's no end of nonsense out there going on, trying to block the truth. And Jim has a lot of that. So Jim, you have an extensive knowledge of aircraft fuel systems, fuel design systems, the history of fuel systems, how they have changed. Can you just give us a brief kind of summary of that and how it connects to chemtrails?
Well, first I'll start with those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. So the question that was originally asked was, what in the world are they spraying? And I figured the first place I would look would probably be in the gas tank. And I've researched it for about 3 years. It's actually one of 12 topics that I researched pretty in depth. We call on my website, I call it diligent environmental activism because we diligently try to get the truth out there. And what I've seen is that if you really want to just cut through all the conspiracy, you really need to follow the money. And when you look at the money, it's about dollars per gallon more than anything else. Of course it is geoengineering. They refer to it as accidental geoengineering. According to Chuck Long, last month, we finally have a confirmation that, yes, chemtrails are whitening the sky. That is the purpose of geoengineering solar radiation management, and that is what is occurring today.
Now, who's Chuck Long?
Chuck, man, punch me in the gut, why don't you? He's from one of the NASA organizations. He's a doctor with one of the NASA organizations.
Okay,
and
so
last month I broke the story. Scientists call chemtrails accidental geoengineering. You can watch the video. It's on my YouTube. It's just search for user R3ZN8D. And that's me. And there's a video on there about it. But yeah, he basically said that, yes, chemtrails are whitening the sky. And according to David Keith, Ken Caldeira, and all these geoengineering fools, that is the purpose of it, is to whiten the sky, to reflect more sunlight and cool the planet. So for 60 years, planes have been doing that. So what I did was I went back in history with the help of a friend of mine, Terry Lee Hodroj, on Facebook. And, she started plowing through old newspapers, which, thanks to Google, they've been digitizing a lot of those. And what we found was, as early as 1958 was the first reference in Palm Springs, Florida, of chemtrails blocking out the sky, completely filling the sky and covering it with clouds. So that kind of was like a red flag for me because, according to every debunker I've ever talked to, they said, well, this is all normal and there's always been contrails and they just disappear. And I call BS because, first, 1958, that's only like 5 years after the first commercial flight, they were already blocking out the sun, completely creating a haze that covered the sky. What's interesting about that is in 1970, the state of Illinois and New Jersey sued the aviation industry for blocking out the sun. Did you know that?
I'm glad you brought that up because that was amazing. I had no idea that they'd actually gone that far, and they were aware. And nowadays you tell people they think you're nuts. But now that you've said this and I can show people, hey, in 1970, states sued to get this stuff stopped. This is beautiful. Beautiful knowledge. And
when I realized that, I said, well, wait a minute. Have they been, has it been a secret program since 1958? And, the more I read about it, the more I read the internal documents from NASA, the German DLR, the FAA's Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative. It seems to me more and more that this is another industry polluting that does not care about the environment and is doing it for dollars per gallon. Now, that doesn't go without saying that there are, and I have, 20 different references of geoengineers saying, let's add more sulfur to the gas tank so that we can cool the planet. That is geoengineering. That is a secret agenda to spray the planet, but it has nothing to do with, killing people. What it has to do with is, according to the research, and, of course, if it's a secret agenda, I'm not going to be able to find it on the internet. But what I have seen is that for, 60 years, they were creating clouds, and those clouds did X, Y, and Z to the environment. Up till about 1980, they believed that they were cooling the planet. Then in 2001, with September 11th, they grounded all flights in America. And when they did that, the president was, hauling butt back to, D.C., and his plane and two F-16s created these really long clouds. And they started to study those, and what they found out was, oh crap, these are actually heating the planet. So that started in about 1980, and then from, 2001, excuse me.
Now, who did this study on these chemtrails created by the U.S. Or the president's jet and accompanying protection?
Man, I think it was Patrick Menace was his name. And There's the Langley Air Research something, LARC, LARC. They did the original report, and then there was, I believe his name is James Haywood, did a follow-up report, and I think it was 2009 with the I can't even say it, that volcano that blew up up in the northern latitudes. Well, again, they grounded all flights during that period because if you get volcanic pollution in the engine, it'll blow up, possibly.
The ones coming out of Iceland, the ones situated in Iceland, and they shut down all the flights to Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, so that happened. And then once again, with all flights, grounded, there was an E3 AWACS doing circles over the UK. And there's a great animated GIF of it on my website. And you can see that those circles slowly turn into a big haze that almost covers the entire UK. Just one plane. And this was another aha moment for the scientific community because they did, a whole bunch of math on those. And the quote goes something like, here, I would rather pull it up than guess at that. Give me 1 second here, and I'll find it because this is freaking priceless. A single aircraft operating in conditions favorable for persistent contrail formation appears to exert a contrail-induced radiative forcing some 5,000 times greater than the recent estimates of the average persistent contrail radiative forces from the entire civil aviation fleet. And that was James Haywood. It's 2009. The paper is called A Case Study of the Radiative Forcing of Persistent Contrails Evolving into Contrail-Induced Cirrus. Now, what this means is the IPCC, those guys who are talking about, what's heating the planet, CO2 and all this stuff, they had thrown contrails from planes into this small little category and saying, not really doing anything. But the 2001 paper from Patrick Menace and the 2009 paper from James Haywood really said, wait a minute, guys, you guys don't have a clue what you're talking about. And this guy is specifically saying that the entire civil aviation fleet had this number, and what they found was it was actually heating the planet 5,000 times more than that estimate. So these are the two big red flags that have occurred so far. And up to this point, everybody assumed that it was just cooling the planet. Now, the guys who
so it's actually doing the opposite. So you're kind of agreeing with Dane Wigington then, because he's saying that these things are, and a lot of people in geoengineering community are saying these things are actually creating a problem. They're actually creating global warming or climate disruption or whatever. Just on their own. I mean, just the fact that they're there, let alone all the HARP and all that other stuff that's going on.
Well, what ends up happening is it traps heat. So basically, normally the heat comes in from space, hits the ground, it would reflect back out into space, cool off. But when you have a cloud bank, that radiation can come through the clouds, and then when it hits the ground and it comes back up, it gets trapped. That's what you call the Venus effect. Like the planet Venus, where it's covered in acid rain clouds and won't let any of the heat out, so it's constantly heating up. Well, the same thing is true with chemtrails. They are full of sulfuric acid. So you're talking about acid rain to boot. And that doesn't
so David Keith is getting his wish without us even knowing it.
In fact, I have a paper on climateviewer.com called, let me get the title of that, Sulfuric Acid from Aviation and Ship Tracks may be higher today than geoengineering SRM would require in 2020. So basically, David Keith put out this projection of how much sulfur dioxide, sulfuric acid is what it turns into, how much of that they would have to put up there to cool the planet. And this guy, George Escobar, he wrote a paper, and he's a scientist and an activist, and I mirrored it on my website because it's kind of your smoking gun, if you will, that we're already way past that. Ship tracks, so big plumes of smoke coming up, making clouds in the ocean, those and contrails and chemtrails. Why don't we do this? Here's all the terms that I've found so far for the same thing. Chemtrails, contrails, persistent contrails, spreading contrails, contrail cirrus, contrail-induced cloudiness, aviation-induced cloudiness, aviation-induced cirrus, induced cirrus cloudiness, jet-produced cloud cover, man-made clouds, artificial clouds, and global dimming. Now, I've read a lot of scientific papers, and nobody ever refers to it as the same thing. And I think the purpose is, a lot with the search engines, If they all use the same term, it'd be easy to read the whole story. But every single paper I read, refers to them as a different thing. But in the end, they're all clouds that are made by jets.
So, yeah, and your discussion of the ship trails. The first time I read that term, I thought, what the heck's a ship trail? And then I realized, well, I've been talking about this now for about half a year. I read an article about the incredible amount of acid rain that is going into the oceans because of the shipping industry.
Yeah. They refer to it as ocean acidification. But when I was a kid, every single day in school, I heard about acid rain. I mean, it's such a simple term. And I think that the term has kind of been banned from public discussion and media because it has so much negative connotations with it, you know, and it's so specific to what is creating it. They're clouds filled with sulfuric acid making acid rain. So for me, you know, I try to look at it from the standpoint of what physical attributes do they have, how are these clouds created, and yeah, go ahead, Pam, mention that.
You know, that's interesting that what you're saying about the sulfuric acid and all that. Last year, I went to talk to the San Joaquin Valley Air Board. Was one of my rants, Brian. And when I took my daughter, and when we got done, I took her home to her apartment complex. And all over her apartment complex, and it had started to rain when we came out of the air board. So it rained for it took me about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get her home, and it was raining pretty hard. And all over her apartment complex, they had posted flyers about a car being broke into to watch your stuff, blah, blah, blah. And they were stapled to the walls of the apartments. And the most interesting thing caught my eye when I was walking up to her door. The paper flyer had all these holes in it, like acid had hit the paper and burned through it. And you know how when you melt plastic, burns a hole, and then the bottom, you know, the plastic gets kind of a lip where it's accumulating from melting? Mm-hmm. Well, the paper had done this. And I thought, well, that's really weird. And whenever it rains here, I get out of it. I'm scared of it.
Yeah, I would too.
I went to I looked around because all of these complexes have this notice. And so I told my daughter, I'll be back. And I went and I looked at all the other ones, and the ones that were getting hit by the rain were melted. And I have these papers. I wanted to have them tested, but I just never have been able to get that done. But everyone thought I was a kook till I posted those pictures. I got a video of it on my YouTube channel. But
sweet, tell me that.
The rain here and that particular day, something was in it that melted the paper. And so this is very, very interesting to hear, Jim.
Well, yeah, I've got a newspaper article from 1982, and it's called, the title of the paper, the article is A High-Flying Theory on the Acid Rain Problem. And this is fascinating. Quote, I've seen instances when blue sky, after a few hours, is laced almost completely in every conceivable direction, but mostly west to east by jet contrails. By afternoon, the sky is clouded over as they spread out. Utility companies, oil refineries, smelters have built higher smokestacks, thereby causing their pollution to be deposited hundreds of miles away. That might cause some of the acid rain problem, but I think it's a minimal in the final analysis. Quote, the jet's exhaust is already up there and only has to change it. There only has to be a change in atmospheric conditions to precipitate out as acid rain. And that's Arthur W. Woodward, and the paper is, doesn't say, the Pittsburgh Press, September 25th. I just dropped that in chat for everybody playing along at home. But yeah, I mean, when you're talking about sulfuric acid, it's kind of a no-brainer because, here, I'm gonna give you a couple of more quotes to play with because this is too much fun. Let's see. The paper is called Influence of Fuel Sulfur on the Composition of Aircraft Exhaust Plumes. Where's this one? All right, here's the quote. Direct detection of total sulfuric acid has been achieved for the first time in the plume of a jet aircraft in flight. The measurements show the same sulfuric acid signatures for the case when sulfuric acid was injected directly into the exhaust jet and the case where sulfur was provided to the engine with the fuel. So basically they're saying, this is a geoengineering paper talking about cooling the planet. Look, man, if we spray sulfuric acid straight into the exhaust, it has the exact same effect as if we put sulfur in the gas tank. They both create the same amount of sulfuric acid and sulfur dioxide. So really for me, what I focus on is three things. It's soot, which is also known as carbon black dust or carbon black aerosol, that is what's called a cloud condensation nuclei. Most of the water and sulfuric acid and metal particulates like titanium, barium, aluminum, and some of these other really fancy, I've seen one recently about polymers. I mean, there's more gallons, but I'm going to look into that. So what you see is soot is the majority of what's coming out the rear that the water sticks to. That's what makes the cloud. But the sulfur is coated, the soot is coated in sulfur, and the sulfur makes sulfuric acid. So at the end of the day, most of the clouds we're seeing come directly from what we're seeing in the jet fuel, the way they're modifying it with fancy chemicals. And nobody's talking about sulfuric acid and acid rain. So I kind of focus on those because when you read, the quotes from the geoengineers themselves, they all say the same thing. Use commuter aircraft fuels doped with aerosol generators. Here's another one, quote, dissolved or suspended in their jet fuel and later burned with the fuel. Addition of sulfur to the fuel released the aerosol through the exhaust system of the plane. Another one exemplary technique may be via the jet fuel, as suggested by our prior work on metallic particles. Another one, a potential delivery mechanism for seeding material is already in place. The airline industry, stratospheric injection of sulfur species. So what you see over and over again from the geoengineers themselves is they're now focusing on the fact that we don't really need to go pump a whole bunch of stuff up there. It's already coming out of planes. So if we can put more sulfur in the gas tank, we can really geoengineer the planet overnight because there's over 100,000 flights a day.
Yeah, I was going to say I thought it was 60, but 100,000, wow, that's a lot of flights. Yeah, that's
mind-blowing.
It's, and you've got probably one of those flight trackers, right, on your site. I've seen.
Correct.
It's just, it looks like the whole U.S. is covered in planes. There's so much action going on.
Yeah, and what you have is
from running into each other is beyond me. But man,
another meme that I hear a lot about is they're creating a drought. Well, it turns out there was a paper at the AGU last December I think it was January 2015, December 2014,
in
somewhere
California,
around there.
You mean, Jim?
Yeah,
California?
Yeah. The paper was called Cal Water 2015, and in it they discuss what they call overseeding. So if you're familiar with cloud seeding is where they take silver iodide and other chemicals and, put them up in clouds to hopefully get a little more precipitation out, more rain. But what they're finding now is that if you overseed clouds, these cloud condensation nuclei, they suck up every bit of water in the sky till finally there's not enough water on any individual ice crystal to fall. Because they're so small, and the term is overseeded, they stay in the air longer. And what you end up getting is long periods of drought and lots of floods. And the way it works in America is, predominantly the winds are from west to east. So on the West Coast, you guys are getting overseeded from ground-based pollution and the plains. And when the plains suck up every bit of the water in the sky, you might end up getting over on the East Coast, finally, enough water has coagulated on all that pollution that's coming out of the plains that it floods the entire East Coast.
Yeah, and that's what's happening, right?
Yep. And furthermore, I've been tracking.
Getting flooding. Aren't you also getting flooding just on the other side of the mountains too, like in Texas and places like that?
Well, interestingly enough, about the Cal Water study is they talk specifically about something called tropospheric rivers or atmospheric rivers. And basically, atmospheric rivers are along the equator. There's this band of, really saturated air. And it's a river in the sky of water. And the river used to come in through L.A. regularly. And then suddenly, that river stopped going through L.A. and started coming to Texas. Well, I looked into it, and interestingly enough, there's a company called Acquiesce and SciBlue. And SciBlue is a U.S. Air Force company run by a ex-colonel named David Kuczynski, and he took a weather modification application in Texas to move an atmospheric river to Texas. You cannot make this up. He did that in 2012. They bragged, using scientific data, that they made it work, that they did bring an atmospheric river to Texas. And since 2012, when they did it, Texas has been flooded and California has been dry.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Swear to God on my life. And
this is a private company that does cloud seeding.
They do way more than cloud seeding. David Kaczynski is a real American hero. This is the only guy I've ever read about on the internet that I am literally scared of. He taught hand-to-hand combat to the FBI, the CIA, and all this stuff. He jumps out of airplanes. He sprayed for the Gulf of Mexico for the BP oil spill. His company also makes bottled water. They do ground vegetation clearing, so Agent Orange. This guy's company, Cy Blue Inc., is nuts. When you look at what's called a NASIC code, it says, like, for a government contractor, these are the categories of stuff we do. The list will blow your mind. And this guy, I won't talk about it. He's got a Facebook group with some scary-looking individuals. I'm not going to say it, but anyway.
But Jim, do you think that they're using HARP too, though? Do you think they have access to that kind of like a connection within the military to help them do this stuff?
I'm going to be honest with you, no. I think that the greatest disinfo out there right now is about how HARP controls the weather. In reality, even Bernard Eastland, the guy who invented the technology before when it was APTI, there's a book called by Margaret Cheney about Tesla, and in it quotes saying that it was designed to be an electric pipeline in the sky. Here's the reason why. Up in Alaska, they've been fracking. They want to turn that natural gas into electricity, shoot it through the sky down to the lower continental U.S. so they don't have to pipe it down. Now, the way you modify the sky with a radio antenna is what Aqueous and Cy Blue is doing. It's called cloud ionization.
And how is that not HARP? They're all over the place. HARP
because the ionospheric heaters, they can mess with your brain because the ELF waves, ELF waves are in the range of your brain pattern, so they can interrupt that. There's a paper that says that they can induce anything from passivity to aggravated nature, and would be great to be used in concert with mass media broadcasts. So the Russian Duma said that HARP was a mind control weapon.
I believe that.
You can't make it up. So what HARP is? Yeah. What HARP is? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you real quick. You know that explosion was there? Wasn't it in China in one of their shipping areas? It made that big old hole. There's speculation that was HARP. I really think that HARP might be a weapon too.
I believe it is, and it's pretty simple. The way they're doing, the way they sold it to the government is called radiation belt remediation. So what they're doing is they're shooting Whistler waves. These are 2.8 to 10 megahertz. An ionospheric heater does not work unless it's 2.8 to 10 megahertz. All of them worldwide are in that range. And what they do is they shoot electricity into the magnetic field lines with something called a Whistler wave. And when this wave travels around the circumference of the Earth, goes along the Van Allen belt, it scrapes radiation out. These are MEV electrons. They're multi-million volt electrons. When they come out, it's called artificial aurora, air glow. So what they're doing is they're scooping out radiation out of space and sucking it down to the planet. They said they're doing this because if we get hit with a Carrington event or somebody detonates a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, that they could quickly suck the radiation out of the sky and save us. But in reality, the same thing can be used to focus energy on the planet to possibly induce earthquakes. And they do that through something called an EMIC wave, EMIC. So for me, HARP is more about creating the ELF waves, controlled, demolition or modification of the sky. They call them artificial mirrors. But now HARP is old school. They're now replacing those with something called the Strawman Array, and it's a HARP that goes on a boat. So the guy that's really selling this stuff is named Dennis Papadopoulos. He's from the University of Maryland, and he's the one that's now said, because they came up with a new way to modify the ionosphere, let's put them on boats. I mean, that's has multiple purposes, but you can't see them on a map anymore, that's for sure. So in the end, Acquiesce, Cyblu, Mateo Systems WeatherTech, the Atlant system down in Alaska or Australia, those are cloud ionizers. And they specifically say that they can steer rivers in the sky with them. So everything that everybody attributes to HARP, these guys say they can do it with these cloud ionizers. And they're at a totally different frequency range and power. But, so for me, it's like I keep hearing people say, oh, HARP steering the weather. No, the guy who says he's steering the weather applied to do it in Texas. There's his name on the application. And, the World Meteorological Organization said, this is all hooey, it's all fake. They went out and said, show us how it works. Well, they said they did. And then, the guy modified the weather in Texas and then said it worked. And guess what? The drought in Texas ended when they said they were going to do it. So, I don't know how much more, evidence people need to see on that, but that's where I'm at. Based on the preponderance of evidence, people steering clouds do it with cloud ionizers. People that want to screw up your brain or make an earthquake.
So are these similar looking contraptions, Jim, or are they more like a dish, like a radar dish? How do they work?
They look very similar. The Acquiesce system, the Mateo WeatherTech, they look like cell phone towers. It's a big tower. It's got a bunch of arms coming off the top. The one that's Atlant that's down in Australia, it's shaped like a pyramid. Interestingly enough. Exactly. But I have all of those. It's on an article I wrote. Cloud ionizers and laser made weather modification. So they can also make it rain with lasers and steer lightning bolts with lasers. But in the end, none of that has anything to do with ionospheric heaters. Trust me, I would have proven it by now. I made a entire globe, 3D globe with NASA satellites and everything. I watched it every single day for 3 damn years. Watching HARP, knew when it was on, because you can look at the web SDR and see when the signal 2.8 to 10 megahertz is on. You could know when HARP is actually on. And I never saw a cloud move. I never saw the wind change direction. The guy that worked there, they did make a little tornado. It was 7 feet tall. And it appeared right in the middle of the deck, but that's about it.
Jim,
yes,
I've seen pictures of round holes in the clouds. Mm-hmm. I've seen very straight, angular corners in the clouds. You don't think that's from HARP or some sort of a frequency device, maybe other than HARP?
I did it first, and it turns out they have several. They have several names for them: fall streak hole, hole punch cloud, canal clouds. There's several different terms for them, but interestingly enough, they're made by planes. It turns out when the plane punches through the cloud deck, all of that gasoline, diesel fuel coming out the rear melts a perfect circle in it.
But what if the ones are real triangular? They're perfectly straight lines that come together like the corner of my wall.
No, I haven't seen that. Send me that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
there are no straight lines in nature. We all know that. There are no straight lines in nature.
But I got some pictures. It goes straight, and then it makes a right hand, just like the corner of my wall. And so I'm curious what you think on that. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah, please do. I would love to look at that.
So, Jim, you talk a lot about carbon taxes and things of that sort. I remember reading about the fact that the airline industry now is trying to make money by with solar radiation management, and they're being told that if they can't figure out a way to cool the planet, they're going to get taxed for not cooling the planet. Is that sort of what you've been saying? Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah. So if we go back to what I was originally talking about, 2001 to 2009, they because of the IPCC and all of this. COP21, Rio Summit, and all that stuff, they're now looking to charge money to anybody who's making CO2 pollution. Now, the EPA went to regulate the airline industry for the first time ever, and they said, if anybody wants to have a public hearing, let me know. So I raised my hand. And Lucy Audette from the EPA called me and was like, are you sure you want to do this? You could just write us a letter. I said, no, we should have a hearing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you just called the EPA and said, I want to have a hearing, and they let you have one?
Well, they had already said, we're doing a proposed rulemaking public notice. Send us your letters, and if you feel that it's necessary to have hearing, let us know. So, of course, I told everybody on the internet, hey, man, we're doing this. It's finally going to happen. And I got called every name under the book on every single chemtrail page there was. And I was like, all right, you guys don't know the hell you're talking about. You'll get over it. I'm going to do this anyway because I happen to know what I'm talking about. So, she said, you don't really have to come up here. And I said, no, we're going to do this anyway. 20 minutes before that woman called me and got sued for like $6,000 for my chemtrail pictures on my website. I guess it was a threat. I don't know. Maybe it was unrelated, but there's no coincidence.
You got sued?
Yeah. Image copyright trolls picked me apart.
Picture?
Yeah. For photos that they say it came from, the original guy, he was like, you got this picture and it's ours. And it was a picture that had 6 pictures in it. And I had got it from an internal ICAO government document. But on that paper, it was said that this paper is Creative Commons. There was no, copyright notice on it. So I mirrored it on my website. And then he called me. Me and my wife sat here and were like, you're a effing, copyright troll. Take me to court. Sue me. Go ahead. Bring it on, brother. I will educate the jury on what a copyright troll is. Tell them what I do, and they're going to hate you. And I haven't heard back from the guy. So 20 minutes later, Lucy from the EPA was like, are you sure you want to come up here? And I was like, yeah. Oh, there's a recording of that conversation on my YouTube. So then they scheduled the hearing for August 11th, 2015. So I did what I do best. I called my friends, and I got Max Bliss and Patrick Roddy and Amanda Williams, a.k.a. Maslin Star Moon, and another guy that I knew on Twitter, Michael Saraceno. The 5 of us went up there. And on C-SPAN, berated the hell out of the EPA on making clouds and geoengineering. It was priceless. There's a video of that also on my website and on YouTube. And now what's going on is in February, supposed to be next month, I believe, what they did was they said they're going to wait till the ICAO writes its own rules. And if they go far enough, they won't regulate them. But if they don't do a good enough job, they're going to have another hearing and then write rules to regulate planes for the first time in history. Wow. Guess who's going to be at that hearing?
Wow.
So my entire speech was about, I took all the science I could find and kept saying making clouds. Because you don't have to say chemtrails. You don't have to say contrails. Both of those are high-level descriptors. They are slave speak. They are new speak. They are BS words.
Well, you try to avoid words that are going to inflame the situation. Instead, you just try to cut to the chase and use neutral words that won't piss people off and make you look like you're a wacko.
Well, it's even simpler. A high-level descriptor is a word that can be used that means different things to different people. They're argumentative, and you can, you pretty much get in an argument if you ever use a word like that. A good examples of that are God, government. I could go on, but these are words that mean different things to different people. But if I say cloud, everybody in the listening audience knows exactly what I'm talking about and generally cannot argue with that word. It's like apple versus God, Everybody knows an apple. God means different things to a lot of different people. So I say cloud because planes are making clouds. If it's a secret government project and they're spraying the clouds, does it really matter? They're still making clouds. Whether it's secret or not, they're clouds. So when I went to the EPA, I kept saying, well, these 2 papers say these clouds are heating the planet, and it's nowhere in your regulations here. You guys are talking about regulating CO2 and NOx and all these other greenhouse gases. But to me, and the 2 million results on Google, people are peed off about clouds. So I suggest that you include in your endangerment finding to regulate cloud production. Guess what? I was the only person that went to the hearing who identified myself as a citizen. So, according to a couple of people I talked to, they got to write me back. They got to, at least have a formal response to me on what I said. So when this next hearing comes up, I'm going to go up there and break their balls, and I'm going to probably bring at least 200 people with me. So I'm really looking forward to this.
So where's it going to be at?
I don't know yet. The minute I do, I'm going to put it everywhere on the internet.
I'll try and make a conscious effort to be there with you.
Well, I will definitely spread the word. I'm going to try to do as many radio shows as possible prior to that to tell everybody possible. This is the first time in history it's ever happened. The hearing I went to was the first ever, and they've been doing this forever. Like I said earlier, they were making clouds back in 1958, and in 1970 they got sued by 2 states, and the head of the Department of Transportation mediated with the airline industry, and they agreed to clean up their act by installing a new kind of combustor on their jet engines. At the time in 1970, they called chemtrails smoke pollution. You can look this stuff up. It's all on my website. Should be back up tomorrow, I hope. But they called it smoke pollution, and they said smoke pollution of the skies. And when they got sued by 2 states, they finally agreed, all 41 carriers, to redesign their engines, put something on there to, quote, reduce 70% of the particulate matter coming out of planes. The skies cleared. Now it's been, almost 40 years since then, 46 years since then, and guess what? The clouds are everywhere. There weren't 100,000 flights a day in 1970. So for me, it's about background aerosols, how much they put up there. And, for me, it's pollution. Because I can't walk into a court of law and say, there's a secret government I'm going to look like an idiot. That's not activism. If you want to be an activist, you got to be pragmatic and use what you can use and can prove in a court of law.
But Jim, are you saying that you also commented about the fact that they've gone towards more diesel in the fuel, and that creates the sulfur content to go higher, and that they think that this is going to help cool the planet versus heat it up? Is that not the theory they're using?
Yeah. So sorry, I got off track there, but So at the end of the day, now that they know it's heating it up, you can read Ulrich Schumann is from the DLR. He's just right out in the open about it. We need less heating, and more cooling contrails. And the way to do that is simple. Carbon black soot is black. If your car is black and it's in your driveway and the sun hits it and you sit on it, it's going to burn your butt because black absorbs heat. So Ulrich Schumann, the Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative, guy's named Dr. Rangsai Halthori. I've interviewed him twice. He's the one flying the access flights with all these chicken fat biofuels. They're talking about removing soot from the equation to turn their contrail frowns upside down. So if they can make these contrails stop heating the planet, put more sulfur in the fuel, then they will get higher sulfuric acid, of course, but it'll cool the planet off. That takes them from a carbon tax to a carbon credit because they call them carbon offsets. So even though they're pumping out tons and tons of CO2, hey, look, we're actually cooling the planet now. Give me some money.
And they're gonna find a way to verify that one way or the other?
They already are. There's a thing called the Baseline Surface Radiation Network. It's on my map, which hopefully will be back up tomorrow. Normally I can link you guys to this stuff, but it's climateviewer.org. Put a bookmark. The baseline.
Jim's coming back on again in about a month, folks, so we can go through this again. This is a lot of information coming at you pretty quick. Jim's a very technical guy, so to him this is like nothing. But for a lot of people, this is all new information. So I want to get you back on again. But I think you're onto something really important here, Jim.
So do I.
Thank you. Well, I learned something called slave speak, and it's about the high level, low level descriptors. And all right, I'm gonna give my little story real quick. There's a thing called Elenin. It was a comet in space that was supposed to travel between the Earth and Sun, and it was going to kill the whole effing planet. I scared my wife, had my freak out, and all that stuff. And after it was over and the planet didn't blow up, I said, "How did this happen to me?" Because I was pretty pissed, and I said, "How can a smart guy like me get so fooled by these people?" Then I was introduced to something called slave speak, and the paper is called The Anatomy of Slave Speak. When I read that paper, it changed my life because it talks about how people use words to control your brain, the real mind control. And when you learn about these high-level descriptors, you can cut all the BS words out of an article really quickly and get down to brass tacks. So for me, it changed the way I researched. I was able to really get to the answers without getting so fixated on, these happy prestidigitation. So that's my story.
Well, I mean, I could say, I hope your site's up soon because you have a lot of information there. Ralph Ely, a friend of ours, he said the first time he went there, he was on it for 2.5 hours, and he didn't even notice the time going by. There was so much cool stuff on this site. And, yeah, I mean, I really have to give you a big hand of applause. I mean, I've never seen anyone on their own make such a comprehensive site with so much information. You've linked to so many data feeds. I mean, how did you figure this all out, brother?
When I started, 4 years ago, there wasn't anything that really did it, and Google Earth had a plug-in. So I said, well, I need to take a step back and look at the big picture. And, so I started reading tutorials and taught myself how to do websites. Took about a year. I mean, I'm still learning, don't get me wrong. But I did the Google Earth thing, and I started putting, I had a flight tracker on there. You could track every satellite in the world because it was pretty easy. You just link to a Google Earth file on the internet. It's updated every single day. And, I could keep myself up to date on a lot of things, simultaneously in one place. And then after that, I kind of, it's like, well, now I want to talk about all the stuff I've learned. So I made a WordPress site. Originally, I was just Resonated, REZN8D, and I didn't tell anybody my name. And I had a WordPress site, and that grew to, I had 250 articles on there. And I said, you know what? I want to make, my own site, not use WordPress.com. So I bought the Climate Viewer URL, and I mean, the rest is history. I just started stuffing it in there on a nightly basis. Like my daughter calls me Batman because I save the world at night.
That's cute.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, can either one of you just want to hang on for a bit after the? I'm not even sure we're going to have a break at the top of the hour. That usually it's a race for me, so I can go on and try to bring in some people. I just want to announce again that I Am Nature Extended is going to happen tonight. If I get some participants in about 10 minutes, just send me a Skype at bporter5611. We'll hook you up, and we'll have some discussion about tonight's topics or whatever you want to get into, folks. But the show is there to try to create activism and in education on these really important issues that we've been talking about tonight. And Jim is, I don't know, Jim, is there anybody else out there in the geoengineering community that is sort of giving out the same kind of information?
No. Well, honestly, like Max Bliss, he's finally come around. Like, he really shocked me today, and excuse me, he sent me a link, on some fuel additives, and it kind of blew my mind. Check this out. I'll just read the title to you real quick. Come on. Energetic nanoparticles as fuel additives for enhanced performance in propulsion systems. Now, what it's talking about is a reference from another paper called Spray Visualization of Alternative Aviation Turbine Fuel Embedded with Metallic Nanoparticles. And the whole damn paper's about aluminum. So for the longest time, I've been trying to find a reference that I can give people to tell them, hey, man, there's a lot of aluminum in the fuel, and they're adding it to the fuel in addition to that. So it says several researchers have investigated the influence of aluminum or aluminum oxide nanoparticles on the thermophysical properties of heat transfer performance of aviation turbine fuel, ignition probability of diesel, and blah, blah, blah. So they literally add aluminum to the fuel to make it go faster, to burn hotter, to produce more thrust. In addition to that, before, when they had gasoline-based fuel like JP4, it didn't have the aluminum content of JP8 because it's a diesel fuel. And diesel fuel is funky. It's, when they changed to kerosene-based diesel fuel for jets, it screwed the engines up, screwed up the filters. My stepfather is a was a Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. He's a corrosion expert from Offutt Air Force Base and worked on the E3 AWACS. After I learned all this stuff, I was like, hey, man, what's up with this NATO single fuel concept? He's like, oh, yeah, that's where we changed from gasoline to diesel fuel. I said, what'd that do to the engines? F them all up. So basically, when they switched from gas to diesel, you had a lot of smoke pollution, just like they were talking about in the 70s. So if you took your car in your driveway and tried to start putting diesel fuel in a gasoline engine, you can imagine what would happen. They did that with every plane in NATO from 1988 to 1994. They said they completed it by 1996. And 1997, wait for it, was the first time the word chemtrail was ever used on the internet. Also, the very first article using the word chemtrail was talking about JP8. How far we've come. Wow. And you can't make it up. Google timeline. Go look it up. Type in chemtrail. Go back each year. And then once you go to 1997, you're going to notice that there are going to be papers on there that say they're from 1994, 1990. But when you click them, you'll see date posted 2003. So I'm telling you, 1997 is when it started. Even the debunker fools believe that. And Jay from Metabunk, confirmed it for me. He's like, yeah, this is the first guy that ever said it, and he was talking about JP8. Well, JP8 really screwed the skies up.
So and they did this on purpose to try to cool the planet, but it actually had the opposite effect. They did it
because NATO wanted something called the single fuel concept, or one battlefield. Almost said Lord of the Rings. One fuel to rule them all. One fuel for the battlefield. And the idea was they were buying all kinds of different gas. They wanted to put JP8 in the planes and JP8 in the Jeeps and JP8 in the tanks. And that's exactly what they did. Wow. And when they did that, that was 28 countries simultaneously switching to this new fuel, which screwed the sky. Of course, my stepfather confirmed that. He's like, when we switched to that stuff, we had fuel filters just burn up in the engine. We had to redesign the entire engine in lots of parts, to get it to even work. So, and that JP8 is loaded with aluminum. I've got a spectrometer, a thing from the U.S. Air Force. They say, chemical composition of aviation fuels. It says JP8, like 9,300 parts per billion aluminum.
Yeah, but I'm a little bit suspicious of that explanation, that why they would want to use a fuel that wasn't designed for the engines. There must have been some other impetus to want to push it, go in that direction. I'm just hearing this for the first time, but it's a bit suspicious.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I said the same thing, but, they have this thing called the NATO Pipeline Committee. And basically, they buy gas from all over the world. And at the time, when they had JP4, they were having to buy it from, like 20 different sources. And then when they switched to what they call the single fuel for the battlefield, they basically could dictate to all the oil barons out there, this is what you're going to give us. It's only going to be one fuel, and this is what we want in it. So in that NATO Pipeline Committee, there's a group of 5 dudes who are called the Special Access Group or something like that. These guys determine what goes in the fuel, and they can add certain things. If you wanted to geoengineer the planet, those 5 dudes could say go, and the next day in 28 countries worldwide, it'd be coming out of planes.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is any secret, it's at the NATO Pipeline Committee. You can look it up.
NATO's, part of that other group that I don't really like so much. And, they're the ones that really are kind of behind all this Agenda 2021, 2030, the depopulation, all that stuff. So, yeah, it would be a good cover to say we just want, all our fuel to match.
Yeah.
While they depopulate the planet with all these additives. I don't know about you two gentlemen, but I wouldn't set it in my car with the engine running in my garage for too long. So I look at the planet kind of, all of us are in the same car together,
Yeah.
and have a closed atmosphere. So if they did have an ulterior agenda, saying they wanted one fuel for everything and rolling it out planetarily, kind of jives. It could work. And so, hey, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and when they did the switch, it was from 1998 to 96, and the next year is when the clouds started appearing all worldwide. So, if there's a secret agenda, this seems like a mode of transfer. If you say that every single plane that is a military plane has to fly the same fuel, what ends up happening is the commercial aviation kind of follows suit. And they, changed a lot of things too. I'm still trying to research that side of it because it's a mystery. It's not written anywhere.